I'm Will, and I like thinking about system design. As long as I've been programming, I've been creating procedural art and building simulations for fun. I love taking something real, breaking it apart into math, and turning it into something new. It makes the world around me feel more real. I've used my love of systems to create things, but I find it much more fun to use system design to explain things to other people. I want to do this by designing a game. The past months, I've found myself drawn to transport company simulation games, Railway Empire, Cities in Motion, Rise of Industry, and especially Railroad Tycoon 3. All of them are superb examples of games that challenge players to design systems. As an exercise, I wrote down the core mechanics of the games. In general, there's stuff. People would rather it be somewhere else, and they're willing to pay you to move it. You transport cargo by placing stations at strategic points on the map, laying track between them, and purchasing vehicles and scheduling them on routes. What complicates the matter is that everything is located at dozens of places across the map. There's many kinds of things needing transporting. People start producing more as time goes on, and some people produce goods from raw materials. And there's usually AI opponents trying to do the same thing you are. After writing that down, I realized I can make a game with those features. I'm calling it Rail Inc. This project has two parts. 1. I want to make a game that challenges players to design systems. And 2. I want to make a video series explaining the systems theory of how I construct the game. In describing the game's design, I want to start by focusing on the following discussions. This is roughly the order I'll cover them in the video series. How does the game create interesting problems for players to solve? I have an idea of the sorts of problems I want the game to have, solving the logistics of transporting cargo, but randomly throwing farms and factories around a map often creates trivial scenarios that don't require player involvement, or problems with no solution. What tools does the player have to solve these problems? Once I have interesting problems in need of solving, I need to design how the player interacts with them. How does the game reward solving these problems? How does the player know they've gotten it right? How does the game respond to the player to keep things interesting? Now that the player has a transport network, how does the game put stresses on it to keep the player engaged and prevent runaway positive feedback loops? While I may have the technical skills to do all of this, I find myself easily overwhelmed by complex projects if I don't have a short-term goal in mind, one that feels simple enough that I'm very likely to finish it. I've broken the initial work into small, achievable iterations so I don't get scared off. So, Iteration 1, Basic Economy. This iteration has 3 parts, all focusing on the first discussion point, creating interesting problems for players to solve. First, a supply and demand model. Given that there are things making resources, farms, logging camps, and things that consume resources, factories, homes, how does the game know what is needed, where, and how much? There's a lot of simple scenarios that other games in the genre fail to handle well, but I think I can get it right. Next, a cargo production and consumption system. With a supply and demand model in place, how does the game represent the cargo being generated and used? I love a lot of how Railroad Tycoon 3 represents this. Cargo can exist anywhere on the map rather than only at set locations, and if there's no rail connection, but there's a strong enough demand, people will move cargo by themselves, albeit slowly. Finally, a terrain model. Featureless flat maps are not only uninteresting to look at, but offer little in the way of helping to create interesting problems. How do we represent things like mountains, valleys, and rivers, and how do they impact both supply and demand, and how cargo moves? That feels like enough work to keep me busy for a while. I have ideas for how to approach these design problems, and once I've done this, at least I'll have something interesting to look at, even if it won't really be a game yet. Well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching.